I was drafted, went to basic training at Fort Bliss. They taught me into switching over to regular Army, so that meant that then I'd have a 3-year obligation. We had to retake my oath, and then at that point in time, we discussed a school that I could go to that would butt up to when I got out of basic training, so I could go right into AIT training. And that was what they called a powerman then. And I went through the basic school and then advanced power generation and then the power pack specialist. And then from there, I was awarded 52C20 MOS, and 8 of us came down and we went to Vietnam. And that was, we got into Vietnam in January of 1969 and everything. So from there you go straight to the 90th placement center there, where everyone went in and checked in. And they looked at me and said, well, what in the world is a 52C? And I told them a powerman, that he runs generators and supplies electrical power to a battalion, a company, a small platoon, whatever requires what. He looked at me and says, we already got electrical power. He says, I think what we're going to do is assign you to the first logistical command, and that is going to be, we'll assign you to a 632nd heavy equipment maintenance. So that's where I got my introduction to dump trucks, D7 cats, and all that stuff. No, not really. No. Now, before then, I did, after I got out of high school, graduated in '66, and then I went to tech school at Waco, Texas. But I finished 1 year of it, thought that I wouldn't get my money's worth on it, went home, re-enrolled as a freshman in junior college, didn't pass freshman chemistry, and they drafted me. The lady in the basement at the post office, I got a letter reporting for my physical in Amarillo, Texas. So I got on a bus and we went over there and everything. And funny on that deal right there, of course, you know, mother told me, says, you don't have to worry. You got flat feet and they'll never pass you. They never looked at our feet. They needed men to get over there. And then it wasn't 10 days later, I got my orders to report to Fort Bliss for Fort Bliss for basic training. And then, of course, from there, I was a regular Army, and they and so that was a 3-year obligation. So that just always kind of stuck in the back of my mind, because it's a terrible thing to graduate from high school and then get drafted. You know, when you get out of high school, you got all kinds of other plans that you want to do. Well, that didn't happen back in '68, '69, and '70. And there was a lot of young men that never got to go on with their lives after that, because they never came home. But I was lucky. Well, you know, for one thing, they did assign me to 632nd Heavy Equipment Maintenance, and I was very fortunate there. We worked on a lot of different kinds of heavy equipment. And I was lucky on that part, in that they assigned me to a young man named Daniel West out of California, and he was on a 3/4 ton contact maintenance truck. We had 2 teams, and each truck had 2 men on it. And so I got paired up with him, and he was a E5, and he was an excellent tutor. And you know, he just gave me a lot of valuable information and all that kind of stuff. And so really in an indirect way, I was doing something that I like to do, and that was a good situation. And I stayed with that 632nd. We no more got settled there, and then 35th Combat Engineers had finished a project up north, and I don't know whether it was an I Corps or 2 Corps. They loaded the whole battalion up on LSTs and shipped them to the Mekong Delta. And they were in dire need of help in getting their equipment going and all that stuff. And so they loaded us up. We had 2 deuce and a halves, a 5-ton wrecker, the 2 contact maintenance trucks, a platoon of about 10 men. They loaded us on the LST and went back out on the South China Sea, went south, and then went into the Mekong River and came in at Ben Tui or Canto. And the LST is that Navy ship that, you know, the front end of it drops down and all the equipment drives out of the belly of it. And right there is where we started working, and was working on dump trucks and cats. The first thing we settled with was I don't know where it is at Ben Tui or down in Soc Trang. They had a D7 cat that had a blown up engine in it, and we brought an engine with us from Saigon, or depot maintenance up there, in the back of that deuce and a half, and we all took off down there, and we I think it was just about an all-day road trip from Canto down to Soc Trang. We pulled in there, and our maintenance sergeant or lieutenant reported to them, D Company, I think it was, down there. He says, "We're here and we brought the engine." He says, "When do you want us to start?" He said, "We would greatly appreciate it if you'd start right now, because we need this tractor." Everybody got after it. The bull blade on the tractor had already been set aside. The guys that run the wrecker, they backed up there, got it set up and everything. I think it was a total of 24 hours. We took the hard nose off the tractor, took the old engine out, put the new one in, put it all back together, and it was running the next morning. And there's probably 10 men working on it. And so we were busy, and every one of us that went down there, when we returned after 7 months back up to Long Binh Post, we was awarded the Army Commendation Medal for that work that we done down there. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough that when my first 12 months was up, I decided I wanted to extend for 62nd Engineers Land Clearing, and that was on Long Binh Post. And I knew what they did. It was quite, how could I say this? It was quite impressive to see that battalion when a company left there. And they left there with 30 D7 cats on lowboy 10-ton tractors. They generally had 4 5.48s and several other things. Anyway, so it was a convoy probably of 2 miles long. And all this stuff was going to the field for a project. And typically, everybody was tasked to clear, they asked to clear at least 100 acres of jungle a day. And we were in the field 45 days. So that was about 4,500 acres of jungle that they laid on the ground. And it was tough. The tractor itself was a good tractor, but it's extremely hot over there, and it was a power shift tractor, in other words, an automatic. That caused the heating issues with it and everything, and so we had some problems with it, like for blown head gaskets and stuff like that and everything. And they expected maintenance to at least, at a very minimum, to furnish them 10 to 11 tractors a day. And it was like fighting a forest fire sometimes. Sometimes we get down to the point where you had to rob Peter to pay Paul to get this one fixed that you knew would get out there. But slowly but surely, we got on top of maintenance and everything, and we kept it, relatively high as far as the number of tractors that could go to the cut and everything. I never ran the cat in a cut. We had all we could do to furnish maintenance for the tractors and everything. In the dry season, that's from February up into about 6 months long. So we would always dig in. In other words, they'd take the tractors that had a bull blade and they'd cut a trench, and then the platoons would set up in those trenches. So if we had a mortar attack, well, then at least you'd be below the ground a little bit. And in the welding side of it, where I was at most of the time, they took a D7 cat and dug a long trench, and the trench was probably about 15 foot deep and the width of almost two tractors. And that was if we were having to work late at night, then the process of welding and everything up on top of the ground would really put a silhouette of bright light out. Well, at least you could shade some of it if you was dug in. We had some bad times. We went on one operation. I can't think when that was. Let's see, that was in 1970 I think it was the first quarter of 1970. I think it was in there. I was up close to the Cambodian border and everything, and where we were going, this area right here that we were traveling down, it had already been cleared in a previous operation. And then we came up on an artillery battery, and they were firing in the direction that we were going. So all day long we'd hear these artillery shells going over our head and dropping in the distance. We got there, and this place that we came to, and they decided to set up the NDP, was a place where I think it was I don't know whether it's Army Rangers or Green Beret, and it was a outpost camp that was previously there, and it got overrun by NVA. But I kind of got, after I looked at this and thought about it back, I kind of thought, well, maybe we were the minnow to attract the big fish to come bite us. But we got in there and got set up. We dug in. We had another engineer unit there. They cut timbers and they laid it over the trenches, put PSP matting on top of it, and then they had a couple of Huff bucket loaders, and they'd dump about, 5 blades of dirt on top. And we had never seen that, and it was like they were going to expect the worst. Well, about probably maybe the third night, everything was going fairly good, and probably about the third night, we went under attack. And the bad thing about it was, I decided I was going to take a shower. And of course, the Army has the 5-gallon shower buckets. You pour the water in and unscrew the shower and wet down, soap up, and then rinse off. I was standing on a pallet underneath the deuce and a half, had my water bucket up here. I had just soaked up, soap all over me, in my hair and everything like that. And the timber line out about 200 yards from us lit up. The attack was started. I jumped off that pallet and ran down in that bunker. And in that, we had got a hard rain the day before, and that bunker was in about 2.5 foot of muddy water. So I'm in there butt naked. All them other guys are in there too. Well, about two or three other guys. And I'm all hunkered down like that while we're taking incoming. And the senior welder at that time looked at me and he said, "Well, Roger," he said, "are you gonna die naked or are you gonna put your clothes on?" So that kind of snapped me out of it. And I got some fatigues on, got my boots on and shirt on, and there we were. And then it wasn't right after I got dressed and everything, the maintenance sergeant, I think he was at E7, he came over there. He had his steel pot on, his flak jacket and all that, and he stuck his head in there. He says, "Man," he says, "y'all take your 50 caliber and you go to the," I don't know what direction it was, but he says, "you go to that line and you set your 50 caliber up on your berm and lay down and fire. Don't fire into the horizon, fire right out in front of you." And so I thought to myself, what in the hell does a bunch of welders need with a 50 caliber machine gun? So there's 3 of us. First thing you got to put up there is your tripod. Now I took the tripod, and then we had another gentleman, and he was in 984th, Al Woods. He's passed away now. That Browning 50 caliber with a heavy barrel is about 85 pounds. He says, "I'll take it," and then the other guy brought the ammo. We set it up and started firing to the ground. And long burst is not going to last very long on a 50 caliber. And we had all the way around the NDP. Well, you know, thank God in heaven, we had Black Horse, 11th Armored Cav, and they could kick some butt. And it was going pretty good, but of course we ran out of ammo, so I ran to the other APCs, and I didn't get shot. I ran to the other APCs behind them, and I started hollering at them, "Thought we're out of ammo for 50 caliber." And so they would just, you know, the can is sealed when the lid's shut, and so they'd just take a can and just throw it over the APC, out the back of the APC. It'd land in the muddy water, and then you pick it up and take it back and put it on the 50 caliber and start laying down fire. That particular night was one of the impressive things that I'd seen. Again, Black Horse could get rough quick. Those guys were professional at fighting off an invasion on the NDP. Most of the APCs that I seen that particular night, you know, the main gun on the back then on the APC was 50 caliber, and then they had 260s on each side, and they were all laying down fire. If you stay hard on that 50 caliber machine gun, that heavy duty barrel is gonna get hot. As soon as they seen that barrel glow just a little bit, they had another bucket over here that was empty. They had a GI OD towel in it soaked in motor oil. They'd take that towel and throw that towel out on that barrel. It would quench that barrel and cool it off, but at the same time it'd set that oil on fire. And everywhere you looked, the front of APCs were on fire. And that's how they were laying that lead to them. So it was a night of fire. I'll never will forget that. But we got through it. I think we lost one man in the whole operation, but there was several that were injured. Well, I still use shower buckets, but I'll tell you what, you know, you just. But yeah, that really caught me off guard, you know. Mechanics and the plow operators, you know, they would the intensity. They learned real quick if you had 30 tractors there, the intensity of going to the cut and cutting in, I don't know, 90% humidity and made a 100-degree day. I never seen a temperature in the cab of that tractor, but everybody said it was 110 plus. And so if you're in there for 9-10 hours, by the time they got their maintenance done, they were ready to conk out. And yeah, it was a task. You didn't really have too much time to think about home or anything else. Time just rolled by. It just, you know, the next thing you knew that, you know, well, Easter came. Didn't really realize it was Easter until the 1st of May. I mean, it was already passed. And you just, they were constantly pushing, you know, to clear and stuff like that. And it was never, for me, it was never a dull moment. I guess what made it tolerable for me now is that there's a lot of the young men that I can understand. You know, it was terrible to sit in that cab all day long and run that tractor in that kind of heat. And you knock a tree down. If you knock a tree down or knock the top, you hit a tree and the top breaks out of it and it's full of bees and it falls on the tractor, then you got a swarm of bees around you. And of course, they learned real quick, if you pop green smoke, I think it's green smoke grenade. If you pop that green smoke grenade in that cab, it'll keep the bees off of you and everything. But if you don't have that smoke grenade, odds are you're going to have enough bee stings on you that you're going to have to be medevaced out of the field. So it was tough, and for the guys like that and everything, I'm sure they couldn't wait to get out of that kind of situation and get home, or, you know, get out and get home and not nothing that bad happened to them. Me, I was having fun. I was just messing around in the motor pool and everything like that, and they came over there and he said, y'all got somebody that can 60th Land Clearing is fixing to leave out on an operation, and we need one more truck to go with them. And what they did is, you had your long convoy with all your equipment on it, and then you had about 3 or 4 trucks that didn't have anything in it. And as you went on that road to the next operation you was going on, if a truck and a trailer had a flat, it generally is on the trailer, he was to pull over, the convoy would pass him, and then the first truck in the very back that didn't have nothing on it, he'd pull up to that trailer, stop. By the time he done that, they'd already had the chains off that dozer. Cat operator would be in the cab. He'd fire it up, walk it down the trailer about halfway, pivot the tractor, back it up on the other trailer, get it square, back it up to, there's one of the 10-ton drivers right there, that guy in that red shirt. And then he would pull forward, put the chains on it, and I took an empty one, and I was at the very front of that group of empties, and we got about 20 miles out of Saigon or Long Binh, and there it was. Somebody had a flat, and it was my turn to pull up there and get his load and keep on going. And we got chained down and everything like that, and the convoy sergeant, which was Rome Runners, 8 company, he came over there in a Jeep and everything, pulled up to the side of the cabin, looked up there at me, and he said, build a fire in that thing and catch up with us. Don't turn right, don't turn left, stay on this blacktop. Get caught up. And that was how you was constantly going all the time. It took me a long time to wind down after I got home. It means a lot. You know, I just seen something that I've always been interested in and everything. And like I said when I was first talking to y'all, it really puts a lump in your throat whenever you stand at a distance and watch that convoy lead out a Long Bend post, headed on a cut and everything. And I mean, it's just tractor and dozer, tractor and dozer. You know, you can stand there, and I mean, you get to the point where you think, is this ever going to end? And it's just, it's really mind-boggling or heart-throbbing or whatever, you know. And so, you know, I'm glad I was a part of it, but not running the plow, just being a mechanic and everything like that.